Traffic cameras are back in the news after the City Council unanimously approved a traffic light camera pilot program to address road safety in the Valley. Officials stress that these cameras at 12 intersections across the city won't be handing out tickets, but will instead collect data on vehicle types, speeds, and timing with hopes of figuring out engineering solutions to the rise in deadly crashes on our roads. Which got us here at CityCast wondering if this is a slippery slope to red light cameras going up around the Valley. So today on CityCast Las Vegas, we revisit a conversation that David Figler had with Aaron Breen, the director of UNLV's Road Equity Alliance project, to talk about privacy, safety, and other issues that red light cameras raise. It's Tuesday, June 2nd. I'm Jesse Merrick, and here's what Las Vegas is talking about.
Aaron, why do you think red light cameras will make Las Vegas streets safer?
Well, here's the thing, David. It isn't just red light cameras. I think that there are a multitude of uses for safety cameras in our community, red light running being one of them. So we have a very high incidence of intersection fatalities throughout Southern Nevada. Safety cameras have been proven over and over again to reduce overall crashes and critical injuries and fatalities in communities where they've been used. And there's no expectation that our community would be any different.
Now, when you talk about cameras, red light cameras are the one that are getting the most attention. There's also speed cameras and other sort of robotic captures of traffic violations. So why don't we just get into the mechanics first? And I do want to focus on red light cameras because that seems to have drawn the most discussion. How do these cameras work?
So I was going to say they've drawn the most ire from awful lot of drivers. So how these cameras work is that they're mounted on a pole at the intersection. There's very clear signage that says this intersection photo enforced. And when people cross the stop bar after the light has turned to red, so it's not crossing the stop bar on a yellow, it's not the light turns red when you're halfway through the intersection. You literally have to cross the stop bar on the red for the camera to be triggered. I don't know what the ultimate setup for any potential entity in Clark County would be. First is that the law prohibiting photo enforcement has to be lifted in the state of Nevada. And then I think that there would be enabling language that would allow each entity to determine if they wanted to participate in a program like this.
I just want to make it really clear that in Nevada right now, it is unlawful for law enforcement to use sort of these traffic pole cameras or cameras that aren't attached to buildings, essentially.
Actually, right now in the state of Nevada, for that to be a legal citation that a motorist would have to pay for any offense, the camera must be controlled by a law enforcement officer.
Okay, so no remote control, no robot control, no AI.
Exactly. Right.
What does the camera take a picture of?
So that's what I was going for with it, would be up to each entity. When cameras first came on the scene, they took a picture of the driver, they took a picture of the license plate. Through the years of evolution of photo enforcement, many communities across the country only take a picture of the license plate. But now there's kind of a backtrack in several states where they are going to again require a photo of the actual person who's behind the wheel, so that if it's not the registered owner of the vehicle, they have an opportunity to fight that citation.
Okay, so obviously Nevada is different from other states in its approach, and that's part of this campaign to try to undo Nevada's ban on these type of cameras. Are there success stories that you could share from other communities that are like ours?
I was with you until you got to that are like ours, because are there communities that are like ours? I don't know. I will tell you that there are absolutely success stories across the United States. I think probably one of the most successful has been New York City, where they've seen a 57% reduction in crashes in the intersections where they have red light cameras. So they're almost in effect doubling their intersections that are controlled by traffic cameras. And the reason is because they're seeing success. They're seeing fewer people die. And so when you talk to people like me or anyone else in the traffic safety community, that's always my comeback for, and I'm sure we're going to talk about why people don't like these. But my comeback over and over again is we're just trying to save lives here.
So what is happening on the Las Vegas streets right now that is making people like Sheriff Kevin McMahill push so hard for this one solution, these traffic cameras being allowed?
Well, I think it is just one solution of a toolbox of many solutions, but it's the one who takes the least time right now. And if we could answer what's happening on Southern Nevada roads right now, we would have an opportunity to fix it. But the problem is that there are a multitude of things happening, more impaired driving, far and away more speed happening on our streets. So when everywhere locked down for COVID, there were fewer people on the road. The expectation would be that there would be fewer fatalities, but there were not fewer fatalities. There were not fewer fatalities here, and there were not fewer fatalities in many communities across the country because people were driving more impaired and at faster speeds. And we just haven't seen in Southern Nevada, we haven't seen the speeds come down. So, they're writing close to 5,000 tickets every year in Southern Nevada for people traveling over 100 miles an hour. And those are only the ones who get caught. So I think why you're hearing the sheriff speak out, and more importantly, why we're hearing so many average drivers in our community say it's time to do this, is because everybody feels the stress of driving on our streets when we're sharing the road with people who have absolutely no regard for our safety.
So now I kind of want to get a little into the pushback. I mean, there, as you know, a lot of complaints and concerns about these red light cameras. One that stood out to me is that it seems like in some studies, they actually increase rear end accidents from sudden stops. There was a 2005 Federal Highway Administration report. They found while there was a significant decrease in side view crashes, there was also about a 15% increase in rear end collisions in their study of 7 cities that were using red light cameras. So one goes up, one goes down. So are red light cameras all that great to solve?
Well, so here's the difference. And you're absolutely right. That is, in fact, perfectly true, that there is an increase in rear end crashes, especially the first year that the cameras are deployed. But the difference is that rear end crash is not the life-altering or fatal crash as often as that side crash. For many years under zero fatalities, we acknowledge now that people are always going to be people. We're always going to make mistakes. There are always going to be crashes. What we're trying so desperately to mitigate are those what we call incapacitating injuries and fatal crashes. And there's a big difference in those two types of crashes.
I think another concern is that it's not an interaction with the driver, the actual driver in real time. Having these red light cameras isn't going to stop people from running red lights. I mean, no more than having a camera where, let's use this example. I think somewhat high profile, Sheriff Kevin McMahill, who is advocating for this as a solve for traffic accidents on our roads, caused a traffic accident. He has pled guilty to it, or at least no contest, so that's not controversial. He ran into somebody. If there was a red light camera there, do you think he would have been any less likely to have caused that accident? I mean, that's the argument. It's not stopping accidents in real time.
Well, see, but I wholeheartedly disagree with you that it will stop those accidents from happening in real time, because that's the reduction that communities are seeing across the country. It's an actual reduction in the number of crashes. Will it stop everyone? Absolutely not. Nothing's going to stop everyone. And would we love to have as part of that toolbox roads that are redesigned that set safe speeds themselves and help drivers make good choices, that and the answer to that is yes. But those things take so long and they're so much more controversial, which just is amazing to me. Drivers
That
who
making the
want to
roads themselves safer
yes, yes,
and less likely to allow speeding is
yes.
more controversial. Wow, that is sad, Aaron. I
It
hate
is.
that.
Well, David, it is totally sad because every time people hear, oh, they want to reduce the speed, people put that in context of it's going to take me longer to get to where I'm going. When in reality, that's not necessarily true. Even, you're not spending your time on the road; you're spending your time at red lights. So those are still going to exist, but people put it in terms without a lot of knowledge about the subject for how it's going to affect me. And so therefore they're not in favor. And so groups of advocates and planners and engineers spend 2 years on a project and they've come up with a design, but then the public doesn't like it. So the decision makers say, yeah, go back to the drawing board.
Well, that seems to be on the decision makers.
Right.
they
Well,
they need
it's
to have a little more fortitude if they really do care about safer streets.
and I'm not going to say that that's not true, but I think that we need to do a better job of educating the average driver because I think that they are part of the problem. I want desperately for people to understand that these are quality of life issues that affect you every day, whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
And every time people are not in favor of anything we can potentially do right now to stop this amazing increase and start seeing a reduction in the number of people killed on their roads, lowers your insurance, makes your commute safer. I just submitted a proposal for doing a presentation, with the moniker of, after all, we're all walking each other home.
Yeah.
And whether that is that you're driving or you're biking or you're walking or you're rolling, it's a fact. If we would just be a little more inclusive with everybody else on the road,
Yeah.
and see everybody's plight, what a better community we'd have.
Let me ask you this, though. You've heard it all. You've been in this space for a very long time, and I know it's
Mhm.
personal to you as a human who have had family members impacted as much as a member of our community. But what other criticisms are out there of these red light cameras that you've been hearing?
I think the whole Big Brother thing has always been the biggest criticism that the state doesn't belong in my car. It's an invasion of my privacy, and all those things are true. I can't disagree with them. But the evolution of cameras being everywhere now, the argument used to be, you're invading my privacy by putting me on camera. And my original response to that was and still is, if you want to not be on camera, don't run the red light. But I mean, it's very simple. But through the evolution of time, we're on camera everywhere we go now. So it's hard to make that jump of Big Brother as much as it was when we first started doing this.
Well, I did look back at the legislative history, 1999, Senator Mark James at the time, and he made a very impassioned argument about, the government peeking into cars for any reason and the potential abuses of that. He called it a slippery slope. What do you think about that?
Well, I have to tell you that at a legislative hearing many years ago, I had a state senator say to me, so Ms. Breen, are you telling me that if I step out on my wife and I run a red light, that she's going to get a photograph of my mistress in the afternoon mail? And I said, yes, Senator, that's exactly what I'm saying to you. And he asked me what could be done about that. And I said, well, I suggest if you step out on your wife, don't run a red light. So but that thought process, David, is so incongruous with we're just trying to save lives.
Yeah.
And so if we take a picture of you because you break the law and we send you a civil violation, is there an even road there that says, well, this happened to you, but we potentially saved a life, possibly yours? The reality is usually the person that's running the red light is the one who walks away from the crash, and the person who's just taking off is the one who loses their life.
Another one that I've heard is, even with civil fines, they could be quite pricey. And that, this is definitely an income stream that might get a little addictive, and that poor people get hit way harder than rich people. And that, if somebody missed their mail and all of a sudden their credit is destroyed, that this isn't fair either. How do you respond to that one?
So I appreciate the opportunity, actually, I would have brought this up too. There has been a lot of pushback about are we targeting minority areas and lower income areas with more of these cameras. And I think that the best solution for that is happening in Europe now, where they're actually doing a sliding fee scale for people who receive these tickets, so that we're not overburdening someone who can't afford that ticket. I certainly, you're talking to the person who ran a class for 5 years so that people who got pedestrian tickets could take care of their ticket without paying their fine. I am all about not taking money that people can't afford because they broke a law that didn't kill or injure anyone. So I think that there's lots more work to be done in that area. And I think that there is some good research happening about when you take a long corridor, like say you take Charleston Boulevard. People who live along Charleston Boulevard on the
I'm included in that. I
Okay.
live on Charleston Boulevard. I live just off of Charleston Boulevard. So you're speaking right to me, Erin. So go
I'm
ahead.
speaking your language. Okay. So
Yeah.
there's a multitude of neighborhoods when you go from East Charleston Boulevard to far west Charleston Boulevard. So if you were to put in a safety corridor, and Charleston does have a lot of fatalities on it.
Yeah, I
So
know.
it may qualify to be a safety corridor for miles, but you have to somewhere in that equation say, well, we have to look at the demographics of each of these neighborhoods and make sure that those neighborhoods that we're not targeting just minority populations, just low income areas, especially with people who are struggling to operate a vehicle in our community because it's very expensive.
Well, let me leave you with this question, Erin, as the last one. I know it takes a time for something to be implemented. It may or may not happen in the next legislative session. So assuming that red light cameras and other remotely operated cameras don't make it through the legislature, what is the big push that we should be hearing from our police and from entities like yours to curb bad behavior in real time?
Well, I think that the big push is the safe systems approach, and that is what's happening in Europe. It takes so many things into account, but basically what it does is it changes our road. It's not a cheap fix, but it's a desperately needed fix. And so we have the RTC, the City of Las Vegas, I believe City of North Las Vegas now, have all received funding through the Safe Streets for All and the bipartisan infrastructure law to start that process. So if the money is available to continue that process, I think we'll start seeing some of these streets change. There's a big project to look at Charleston Boulevard, which is why I brought the Charleston Boulevard up. There's a RISE grant that was given to City of Las Vegas to make big changes on Stewart Avenue. There's the Maryland Parkway project, but none of them were easy and none of them were quick. So Boulder Highway, we started working on literally 10 years ago, and the only dirt that's being moved is just in Henderson. Nobody else is working on it. So it's an expensive solution. And then the other thing, David, a lot of people aren't going to like me saying this either in the current climate. We don't have enough law enforcement officers to do their job. Those traffic officers' job is to go out and remind you what the rules of the road are before you get in a crash. So we need more income dedicated to traffic officers. Right now, they just go crash to crash to crash, and they don't get to do that prevention work. So that's another huge missing piece I think, in the rise in our overall crashes and especially our fatal crashes.
I mean, I obviously have my thoughts on trying to cite and arrest your way out of some huge social impact issues, like road design, like all those ins and outs, allowing businesses that encourage more motor vehicles going through, like drive-throughs and car washes and things of that nature, just popping up everywhere. So, I mean, I guess holistically, we may differ a little bit on how we get to the end, but I think at the end of the day, we both agree that people just need to sort of suck up some things that might be inconvenient, as long as the end result is that we all get to enjoy life together.
Life together. Amen. That's the bottom line, that we all get home at the end of the day.
Nothing but roundabouts up and down Charleston. I heard it here first.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of roundabouts. And as a pedestrian advocate, people are always shocked when I say that. But I am an absolute fan of roundabouts.
Erin Breen, thanks so much for joining us today here on CityCast Las Vegas.
Thanks, David. I appreciate it very much.
That's all for today here on CityCast Las Vegas. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend? Rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our free morning newsletter too. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Las Vegas neighbor at membership.citycast.fm/Las Vegas. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Until then, though, take care.